Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today, we've got this huge stack of sources, interviews, articles, liner notes, and we're going to try and map out the career of, well, a true American genius, Paul Simon.
And restless is the word we have to just keep coming back to. I mean, we're not just looking at a successful songwriter. That's underselling it.
Yeah.
We're talking about someone who kept changing the map of popular music.
Yeah.
Over and over again, from, 1956 all the way to today?
Exactly. So our mission here is to really get into how he managed that. How does a kid from Queens singing doo-wop become the voice of 60s folk? And then he pivots to become this global music synthesizer, pulling in sounds from South Africa, from Brazil.
And that's the real question, right? What is that creative drive? Is he just restless? Is he constantly searching for something new? Or is he just allergic to repeating himself?
And we should probably just lay out the credentials right away, because the success is just staggering. We're talking 16 Grammy Awards.
And the big one album of the year. He's one of only, I think, 8 artists to win it multiple times as the main artist. First, for Still Crazy, after all these years.
That incredibly introspective New York kind of album.
Right. And then for Graceland, which is this massive global explosion of sound.
Yeah.
And you've also got the double induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
First with Simon and Garfunkel in '90, then solo in 2001. It's like 2 separate legendary careers.
It really is.
Okay, so let's try to unpack this. How does a 12-year-old writing his first songs become this global force? And why does his newest work, 7 Psalms, which is so meditative, suggest that even now he's not done?
Let's start at the very beginning. In Queens.
So to get the foundations of Paul Simon, you really have to start in New York City. He was born in Newark, New Jersey in 1941, but the family moved to Queens in '45. Hungarian Jewish roots.
And that background is so crucial. His family was musical, but a very different kind of musical. His dad, Louis Simon, was a professional bass player, a band leader.
Lee Sims was his stage name.
Right, Lee Sims. So he's coming from this world of big bands, dance music. And his mom, Belle, was a school teacher. But it's that move to Kew Gardens Hills in Queens that really shapes him.
And there's this great observation we found from Donald Fagen of Steely Dan. He kind of grew up in a similar world.
Yeah, and Fagen said that Simon's childhood was like that of a certain kind of New York Jew, where music and baseball were just everything.
Why those 2 things specifically?
Well, Fagen's point, and Simon's basically agreed with it, was that for kids like them, assimilating was complicated. So they gravitated to black music, doo-wop, R&B, and baseball as this alternative culture.
A way to find an identity outside of the mainstream.
Exactly. It was a place to belong that wasn't their parents' classical music world or the sort of white pop music at the time.
Which totally clicks when you hear Simon talk about hearing early rock and roll for the first time. Songs like G by the Crows.
Earth Angel, yeah. He said he tried to explain to his dad how powerful those sounds were.
And his dad, this accomplished musician,
He didn't buy it. That's how Simon put it. And that little rift, that's kind of the start of everything. He's rejecting his dad's sophisticated world for this raw energy he's hearing on the radio.
And pretty quickly, he finds a partner in that search, Art Garfunkel.
They meet when they're 11, 1953. They were in a school play together, Alice in Wonderland. By 13, they're singing together all the time.
And writing. Simon wrote his first song, The Girl for Me, when he was 12 or 13.
And he said it was a neighborhood hit. They played it everywhere.
I love this detail from the sources because Simon didn't know how to write music down yet. His dad, Louis, wrote out the chords and the words for him.
And that piece of paper is now in the Library of Congress. The first copyrighted Simon and Garfunkel song, written down by the very musician whose style he was rebelling against.
That's incredible. So that leads to their first record, right? Hey, Schoolgirl.
1957, yeah. They're still teenagers. They call themselves Tom and Jerry.
After the cartoon.
Yep. And it actually charts. It gets to number 49 on Billboard. A little taste of success right out of the gate.
But that Tom and Jerry phase, that whole period between 57 and 64, he was working constantly.
Oh, he was a hustler. He recorded over 30 songs under all these different names.
Yeah.
Jerry Landis, Paul Kane.
He was trying on different identities.
And completely. As Jerry Landis, he even had another small hit, The Lone Teen Ranger, which barely scraped the charts at number 97. He was just learning the craft from every angle.
So the real beginning of Simon and Garfunkel, the brand, comes in 1964 with Columbia Records.
Right. They audition for Clive Davis. He signs them. And the label makes this decision to just use their last names. Simon says it was the first time that it happened in pop music. It made them sound serious.
More like poets or authors than pop singers.
Exactly. So they released their first album Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. in late '64. It's a very traditional acoustic folk record.
And it completely bombs.
Totally tanks. Sells nothing. The Sound of Silence is on there, but it's quiet, it's acoustic, no one cares.
And the failure is so bad it breaks him up. Garfunkel goes back to college.
To study math, of all things. And Simon, who had done a bit of law school, decides he's done. He packs up and moves.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because that failure leads to this U-turn that changes everything.
He moves to London in 1965, and he finds his people there, in the folk clubs. He said there was no place to play in New York City for what he was doing, but in London, they got it.
This wasn't just a break, though. This was like his graduate school for songwriting.
Totally. Well, he said the experience was very powerful. He's soaking up all this English folk tradition, and crucially, he meets the guitarist, Martin Carthy.
And we really need to pause on Martin Carthy because this is a huge deal.
It's everything. Yeah. Before this, Simon was mostly a strummer. Carthy teaches him this complex finger-picking style where you're playing the melody, the bass, the rhythm all at once on one guitar.
You can hear it all over their later stuff. Scarborough Fair, The Boxer.
It's the absolute foundation of that sound. It turns him from a songwriter into a true composer for the guitar. He's writing classics over there like Homeward Bound and I Am a Rock.
He's basically building this new, sophisticated sound, but the thing that brings him back to America and to stardom happens completely without his permission.
It's one of the great stories in music history, the Sound of Silence remix.
So while Simon is playing to like 50 people in a London club, some DJs back on the East Coast start playing the original acoustic version from the album that flopped.
Yeah, in Boston and Florida, it's getting some traction. And their producer, Tom Wilson, he notices.
And Wilson, who had worked with Dylan, he sees an opportunity. He takes their original quiet track
and just dubs a full electric band over it. Electric guitar, bass, drums. He turns it into a folk rock anthem. And the key thing is he does it without telling them.
Can you imagine? Simon said he was horrified when he heard it. He thought it ruined the song.
But it didn't matter what he thought. The single goes straight to #1 in the U.S. in early '66.
And suddenly they're stars. They have to get back together.
That one unauthorized remix launches their entire career. It leads to Sounds of Silence, Parsley, Sage, Rosemary and Thyme, Bookends, all those classic albums.
They pretty much become the voice of the late '60s. I mean, Mrs. Robinson from The Graduate.
And that title is another great story. Simon was apparently toying with calling it Mrs. Roosevelt.
Seriously?
Yeah, until the director, Mike Nichols, just said, "Don't be ridiculous. It's Mrs. Robinson." It's that classic tension between Simon's, literary ideas and the need for a pop hook.
And then at the absolute peak of their fame, it all falls apart. After Bridge Over Troubled Water in 1970.
Which was a monster album. That title track alone, the influences are just incredible.
The main line comes from a gospel song, Mary, Don't You Weep.
By the Swan Silvertones, yeah.
Oh.
And the melody, the actual melody, is based on a Bach chorale. It's this perfect synthesis of high and low culture.
But even with all that success, the relationship was just done. They split. And our sources say that Simon told Clive Davis it was over at the urging of his first wife, Peggy Harper.
Which, again, shows you how much his personal life was always tangled up in his professional one. It wasn't just an artistic split.
So that's it. The duo is over. And now he has to figure out who he is all by himself.
Right. And his first move is kind of surprising.
Yeah, in 1970, he actually starts teaching. He taught songwriting for a little while at NYU.
Which is pretty wild to think about. He's just come from being in the biggest band in the world, and now he's in a classroom. But he was very realistic about it.
He said, you can't teach someone how to write a song. He was more interested in the process and helping students avoid the mistakes he made.
He was always a student of the craft, even when he was the one teaching.
His first solo album, just called Paul Simon, comes out in '72, and the critics love it. It's the moment he proves he can do it alone.
And right away, he starts pushing the boundaries. This is where you see the first real hints of his interest in world music, the song Mother and Child Reunion.
Which was a top 5 hit.
He recorded that in Kingston, Jamaica, with Jimmy Cliff's band. That's a huge deal for a mainstream folk rock guy in 1972. It was a clear signal that he wasn't going to just make another folk record.
The album also had Me and Julio, Down by the Schoolyard, another big hit. He was on a roll.
Yeah, and then there goes Ryman Simon in '73, keeps it going. You get Kodachrome and Loves Me Like a Rock.
That one also had Something So Right, which was a really open tribute to his wife, Peggy. He was putting his whole life into these songs.
He was, and that's why the next album feels so different. The mood just darkens.
Still crazy. After all these years, 1975, this comes right after his divorce from Peggy.
And you can hear it all over the record. It's cynical. It's full of this midlife New York anxiety. The music is really slick and polished, but the lyrics they're bruised.
But it was huge. It's his only solo #1 album on the Billboard charts, and it wins the Grammy for Album of the Year.
It proved his strength was turning that personal pain into these incredibly sophisticated, relatable pop songs.
And the biggest hit from it, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, is like the ultimate example of that. It's this jaunty, catchy tune about the end of his marriage.
A total breakup anthem, disguised as a pop song. Classic Simon.
So in the late 70s, he starts branching out even more. He gets into acting.
Yeah, he has that great role as the sleazy record producer Tony Lacey in Annie Hall, Woody Allen's movie.
He was great in that. And he started hosting Saturday Night Live a lot.
He was a fixture on early SNL. But the one everyone remembers is the Thanksgiving show in 1976.
Did the turkey suit.
The turkey suit.
Yeah.
He comes out to sing Still Crazy after all these years, wearing this giant, ridiculous turkey costume. And he can't do it.
He stops mid-song.
He stops, tells the audience how embarrassing it is, and then walks off stage yelling at Lorne Michaels. It's this perfect moment of this serious artist clashing with the absurdity of television.
Then he dives into making a movie himself, One Trick Pony, in 1980. He wrote it, starred in it, and did the soundtrack.
It was a very personal project about a musician struggling in the industry.
Yeah.
The album had a great single late in the evening, but the whole thing, it didn't really land commercially.
And that kind of dip in his career sets the stage for something massive.
The reunion, the 1981 concert in Central Park with Garfunkel.
A huge, huge event. The live album, the TV special, it was everywhere. And it immediately got them talking about making a new studio album.
Which is where it gets complicated again. That reunion album was supposed to be Hearts and Bones.
But it didn't end up that way.
No. They start recording, the old tensions flare up, and Simon eventually just erases Garfunkel's vocals from the tapes and releases it as a solo album.
Wow, that's a bold move.
And it had huge consequences. Artistically, Hearts and Bones is now seen as a masterpiece. It's incredibly well-written, confessional. A lot of critics call it one of his best.
But at the time?
At the time, it was his biggest commercial failure. People were expecting a Simon and Garfunkel reunion, and they got this very intense personal solo record instead. It confused everyone.
That album had The Late Great Johnny Ace, which is this tribute to Johnny S. and John Lennon.
And it features this haunting orchestral piece at the end by the composer Philip Glass.
Which is another example of him pushing boundaries, right? Bringing in this avant-garde, minimalist composer into a pop song.
Absolutely. It shows he was still reaching, still trying to blend these really different worlds, even if the audience wasn't quite there with him.
And so much of that album was about his relationship with Carrie Fisher.
Yeah. Their whole story is woven through it. They got married in '83, divorced in '84, but were on again, off again for years. The title track, Hearts and Bones, is about them. The song Graceland started as a reflection on their relationship.
She later said She Moves On was about her too. He was just constantly processing their life through his art.
He was. And you could argue that the commercial failure of that brilliant personal album is what freed him up to do something completely radical next. He had nothing to lose.
Which brings us to Graceland.
Yeah. By the mid-'80s, his career was kind of in a weird place. Hearts and Bones was a critical gem, but a commercial dud. He needed something to shake things up.
And he found it on a cassette tape.
A bootlegged cassette, yeah. It was South African street music, Wimba Conga, and he was just completely captivated by the rhythms.
So he doesn't just borrow the sound, he goes all in.
He goes all in. He travels to Johannesburg to record with the musicians there. People like Ladysmith Black Mambazo, the bassist Bakithi Kumalo. He immerses himself completely.
And the way he wrote the songs was different for him, right?
Totally different. He didn't show up with finished songs. He would just improvise melodies over these amazing rhythm tracks they were laying down. He said the word Graceland just came to him, even though he wasn't planning to write about Elvis.
He was letting the music lead the words.
Exactly. The result was this incredible fusion. You have his very literary New York sensibility layered over these joyful, complex African rhythms. One critic called it a double vision.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's pop music you can dance to, but it's also got all this depth and complexity.
And it was a monster hit. It sold, 16 million copies worldwide. It won the Grammy for Album of the Year. It completely resurrected his career on a global scale.
But this massive success immediately gets tangled up in a huge political controversy.
Oh, yeah. This raises that really important question about art and politics. How do you separate the creation from the context it was created in.
So the issue was the cultural boycott against South Africa's apartheid regime.
Right. The world was trying to isolate South Africa to pressure them to end apartheid. And by going there to record, Simon was seen by many as breaking that boycott.
People like Billy Bragg were very critical. The African National Congress, the ANC, they protested it.
It was a serious high-stakes debate. And Simon's defense was very specific. He argued he wasn't there to make money for the regime. He paid the black artists extremely well, gave them royalty points.
He saw it as collaboration, not exploitation.
Exactly. He was amplifying their voices on a global stage.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so complicated that even anti-apartheid groups were divided. The UN's committee actually supported the album in the end because it did so much to showcase black South African musicians.
But the ANC still held that he broke the protocol, which was a big deal.
It was. He was even briefly put on a UN blacklist. It was a real firestorm.
So how did it all get resolved?
Well, the ultimate resolution came a few years later, in 1992. Apartheid was ending, Nelson Mandela was free, and Mandela himself invited Simon and his band to come play in South Africa.
Wow! An endorsement from Mandela himself.
That pretty much ended the controversy. It was an affirmation of the album's positive cultural legacy.
And he didn't stop there with the world music exploration.
No way. In 1990, he released The Rhythm of the Saints, and this time he was diving into Brazilian music.
The sound on that album is a bit different, though, right? A little more introspective.
Yeah, it's darker, more rhythmically complex. He's working with these incredible Brazilian percussion groups like Alodum. The lead single, The Obvious Child, is just driven by these massive drums.
And it was another big success. It proved Graceland wasn't a fluke. This was his new direction.
It was. And all that success led to another huge concert back in Central Park in 1991.
But this time, no Garfunkel.
No. This was his show. Him and his huge band of African and South American musicians, 500,000 people showed up.
He said later, that concert was the most memorable moment in my career. It was the ultimate validation of this whole global journey.
Yeah, moving into the mid-90s, he takes what might be his biggest risk ever. And it leads to his biggest failure.
Broadway. He decides to write a musical, The Cape Man.
And he collaborates with a Nobel Prize-winning poet, Derek Walcott. I mean, the pedigree was insane. It was this passion project he worked on for years.
What was the story about?
It's the true story of Salvador Agron, a Puerto Rican teenager who committed 2 murders in New York in 1959. Simon remembered this story from when he was a kid. It was about immigration, youth, crime. Very heavy themes.
And it was a disaster.
It's a complete commercial disaster. The critics hated it. It closed almost immediately, and it lost something like $11 million.
And the album of songs from the show was the first solo album of his career to not even make the top 40.
It was a brutal flop. But what's interesting is, even then, some critics praised the music itself. One called the score bewitching. It was this blend of doo-wop and Latin rhythms. Just maybe too complex for a Broadway audience at the time.
So how does he bounce back from a failure that big?
He goes back on the road, and not just any tour. In 1999, he tours with Bob Dylan.
2 absolute legends on one stage.
Exactly. It was a huge event, and it just instantly changed the narrative. The failure of the Cape Man started to fade, and he was back to being Paul Simon, the icon.
And he keeps experimenting. In 2000, he releases You're the One, which has these North African grooves. Then in 2006, he works with Brian Eno on the album Surprise.
And that Eno collaboration is really key. Eno brings in all these electronic textures, this ambient sound. It's a very modern-sounding record with songs about 9/11 and the Iraq War.
It shows he's still engaged, still trying to find new sonic palettes.
Always. And he's still listening to new things. His 2016 album, Stranger to Stranger, has him working with an Italian EDM artist called Clap.
How did he even find him?
His son, Adrian, introduced him to the music. It just shows he's never stopped being curious, never stopped searching for that next sound.
So in 2018, it really felt like the end of the road. He announces his farewell tour.
Yeah, the Homeward Bound tour. He said he was tired of being away from his family, and his longtime guitarist Vincent Nguyen had passed away, which hit him hard. He played his final show in Queens. It felt like a perfect bookend.
But you can't really retire the creative impulse, can you?
Apparently not. That same year, he releases an album called In the Blue Light. And it's not new songs.
What is it?
It's re-recordings of his own lesser-known songs. He went back into his own catalog and reimagined them with new arrangements, new harmonies. It's like he was curating his own legacy.
And then just last year, in 2023, something else entirely. 7 Psalms.
This one is just, it's on another level. It came to him in a dream.
A dream.
Yeah, he said a voice in a dream told him, You were meant to be working on a piece called Seven Psalms. So you did. It's this 33-minute continuous piece of music. It's acoustic, meditative. It feels like a prayer.
It's so far from pop music. And the sounds he used, I read he was using amplified wine glasses to create a sound like church bells.
Just always experimenting. But with the release of that album came some really tough news.
His hearing.
Yeah, he revealed that he lost most of the hearing in his left ear. Which, for a musician, I mean, that's just devastating.
You would think that would be it.
You would think. But he said the creative spark from Seven Psalms was so strong, he's now planning a duets album with his wife, Edie Brickell. And he's even working on another musical. He just can't stop.
And he's going back on tour.
Back on tour. He announced the Quiet Celebration Tour for 2025. But this time, it's all smaller venues, intimate spaces.
It's impossible to talk about his work without talking about the people who inspired it. His personal life is all over the songs.
Absolutely. His 3 marriages are like a roadmap through his catalog. His first wife, Peggy Harper, Something So Right, is about the good times. And then a later song, Train in the Distance, is this incredibly poignant look back at their divorce.
And then, of course, Carrie Fisher, that whole tumultuous, iconic relationship.
I mean, their road trip inspired the song Graceland. She confirmed that She Moves On is about her. He turned their chaos into art.
And his current wife, the singer Edie Brickell, they've been married since 1992.
And it's this incredible musical family. All 4 of his kids are musicians. And now he and Edie are finally planning to make a record together. It's a beautiful, full-circle moment.
Beyond the music, though, he's also built this incredible philanthropic legacy.
Yeah, the Children's Health Fund, which he co-founded.
Yeah.
It started with this idea of putting medical clinics on buses to bring healthcare to kids in underserved areas like the South Bronx.
And that's grown into a huge national organization now.
It has. And what's really interesting is his philosophy behind giving. He became a big supporter of something called effective altruism.
Which is basically the idea of using data and evidence to figure out where your charitable donation can have the biggest possible impact, right?
Exactly. It's not just about giving. It's about giving smart. And that is so perfectly Paul Simon, applying that same restless analytical genius he brings to music to the act of doing good in the world.
So when you try to sum all this up, you have this career that starts with an accident. I mean, if Tom Wilson doesn't remix The Sound of Silence, who knows what happened?
Who knows? He might have stayed a folk singer in London. That moment just throws him into the pop machine, and the rest of his career is this constant negotiation between his own artistic instincts and the pressures of fame.
He goes from being this very American folk voice to becoming a pioneer of global music with Graceland. He's always chasing a new sound, terrified of repeating himself.
And now, in this latest phase, he's chasing something else, something more spiritual, more internal, with 7 psalms. It's almost like he's gone from a global rhythm to a cosmic one.
It all comes back to his process, which he's always said is music first. The rhythm and the melody come, and then he has to find the words to fit inside it.
The music leads the way. It always has.
So that brings us to this final thought. He's coming back to the stage in 2025 with this Quiet Celebration Tour. Small venues, intimate shows.
And this is the guy who played to 500,000 people in Central Park. He's deliberately trading that massive scale for intimacy. So what does that tell us about the end of this journey? Is the ultimate goal for the restless explorer not to conquer the whole world, but to find one perfect quiet room?
Something to think about. We'll catch you next time for The Deep Dive.